One at each service, correct? We dug down 2 feet today to find one, the shut off. And we couldn't find tracer wire. Riser. New house, just poured concrete on the driveway. We thought they covered it up. That was the concern, so we started looking for it, found it 2 feet down.
Jim with a mustache.
We go back to the developer, we go back to the builder.
I was like, that must be back in the
The
day.
tracer wire is one thing, but whatever, that's a couple of years ago. As far as any warranty or. You know.
All the curb stops work. GPS. So I would suggest that an individual builder creating a lot and not
Office is a lot of great.
Yeah. With that tracer wire right
Yeah,
there,
Jim and
that
Lizzie.
should be coiled up in there, so you can physically pull that out, hook on your locate.
There's Dana.
But we found this one that was down about 1.5 feet. We tried pulling up on it. It's tight. It's buried in the ground. Should have pulled that up.
Well, I think that if I had to guess. Adjust
So now we're coming across some there. There's 2 houses left. So we can dig on those and not mess up anything. But we're coming across some that are buried 1.5 feet down inside.
Meet the general partner.
And most people understand what we're doing, but here we are putting risers on
So
to get them up. Nice.
You sent the agenda.
That water is deep.
For those lot, those huts were.
So you don't.
brought out a lot of
He's
them.
the owner, so he's just news record. The general email. He doesn't.
At least on the.
We usually give him
On the
a.
north side and three.
Yeah. Yeah, because he does reports, so he has. Yep. So yeah, whenever you want to see the council, just type in news record or Grimsby and it comes up. Yeah, you're used to here. You had it in the hands. Yep. You know, and you take the whole time.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Say, so before we give you your final, or your final task.
Look at this water. In conjunction with building.
Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Tuesday, October the 19th, and 6:30 council meeting. Call the meeting to order and do a roll call. Ryland Dykhorst.
Lori Novak.
And on the Zoom meeting, we have
Dana Bergner.
yeah,
You're gonna have to unmute.
unmute you.
Am I unmuted now?
I hear you, Dana.
Can't hear either of them.
Jim Richards.
They can't hear us, but we can hear them.
She's not on mute.
I can hear you, Dana.
Her volume is down.
Yeah, I can hear you guys too.
It's not muted. Not muted, actually.
Jim? Yep. We'll do a roll call. It's wrong here.
They can hear one another, but we can't.
Can you guys hear me?
Smart build there.
Yep. I mean, I can hear you.
Okay.
Oh.
Go on the mute, like the carrot. Go there, go to the carrot. Go over just a little bit. There.
You got some good lighting, Jim.
Yeah, don't I?
Mhm.
We can hear one another.
Is the volume down?
No, there's me.
Yesterday. Thanks.
No.
Came back this morning, good.
Remember that was on not played if we go to volume on there.
Okay.
Lizzie, are you in quarantine too?
They're sleeping.
I just have a cold.
Where's-
muted it.
Can you guys in chambers hear us?
Now we can.
Okay.
Success.
So, Jim, we can hear you, Lizzie
Hello, this is Lizzie.
and Dana.
There's Dana.
Okay. Dana, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Everybody's here.
Okay.
All right, so because of the Zoom recording, I declared a electronic meeting tonight. And this was posted on our website this afternoon. This is a declaration regarding conducting meetings by telephone or other electronic means for the October 19th meeting. Just a couple things I'll read, won't read the whole thing, but just briefly, as mayor of the city of Orinoco, I find as follows that the coronavirus has been declared a health pandemic and national and state have been declared. And through the last year and a half, there's been different executive orders from the governor. So I've consulted with the city's chief legal counsel, Mike Flaherty, regarding the current situation. Based on the finding facts, I've determined as follows, that due to the current health pandemic complying with the provisions of Minnesota statutes, chapter 13D, would threaten the health, safety, and welfare of city officials, city staff, and the public. Due to the current pandemic declared under Minnesota statutes, chapter 12, it's not practical or prudent for the city to conduct in-person meetings with those affected by COVID-19 or like symptoms. So based on that, all the meetings of the city commissions will comply with requirements of Minnesota statute, section 13D.021. So with that, that's the reason we're having our meeting tonight and allowing the three council members to call in on Zoom. Our agenda is in front of us, and I would like to make two agenda changes. One, I'll make a motion that we move up the CETA presentation. We have a couple of gentlemen here from CETA. We move that from the personnel, which is L area 5. We move that up to before water and sewer, number G. The second item is to the closed sessions in personnel, which is under LII. We would move that down to before the consent agenda IX. With that, I'll accept a second.
Second.
Any other comments or discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mayor, you have to do all roll call votes if you do.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, that's right. So these are roll calls, so Ryland is aye.
Lori, I.
Jim,
Lizzie, aye.
Dana, I.
Okay,
We need Jim.
He said I.
Here, sorry.
aye. So you know, all those in favor? I'm sorry, that's approved. Next item is public forum. It's a 3-minute time limit per person. The city council welcomes and encourages participation from community members. Please keep in mind that your comments must be pertinent to city business and must adhere to data privacy rules. No employee's name may be used. Please do not expect action from the council this evening regarding your concerns. We also request that your comments be limited to 3 minutes. Speakers will be recognized only once. At this time, we ask that anyone who would like to address the city council to please step up to the podium and state your name and address and fill out a form that's on the podium.
Would that be related to like, what we're here for tonight?
Oh, the planning and zoning or the resolution? If you'd like to make a comment, you can.
But should I just wait until my time comes up or,
Why don't you just go ahead and do it now?
okay?
Can you do it in 3 minutes?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So I could hand out the related information?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay,
All right. This was a previous one, and that's a modification from last week's meeting.
okay.
So modification was,
Just a paging circle.
yeah, and then less disruption to the ground or to the green space. So by doing the paving and then taking the big gravel area out, having a paved area, so there's green space here and there's more green space, and then added the trees inside there.
Super, very nice.
Engineer did it per ordinance. I think he told me today, I asked him why the trees were on the, I'll say the east side. And he said, I did everything per ordinance, and he named off the, whatever the number was, and said that did it per code anyway.
Okay,
And my name is Bruce Ryan. And I'm here for the rezoning and placement of the LP tank on Vintage Road. And I guess, do I answer questions now about that, or is that, if there is
well,
any?
let's wait until we get to the resolution.
Wait until we get to that
Yeah,
point?
That
Okay.
might be a more appropriate time.
All right.
Thanks for the drawings, no. Thank you. Anybody else like to speak to public forum? Third and final call for public forum. Seeing none, we'll close public forum at 6:40. All right. Sergeant Chambers is not here. Dan from the fire department.
Evening, everybody. So runs, we just had one last month, but that was a little excitement there. So the house fire that we had a couple months ago, the 2 a.m, the garage decided to light up by itself, which doesn't happen. So we had a little excitement there. So it was, by the time we drove by, it was, fully engulfed. And so we asked for help. And so Highland came, gave us some water to, draw, because we weren't quite sure, when the call first came out, was it actually the house again, or was it actually the garage? So we were there about 2 hours putting out the house and car. And then later on, an investigator came out, and since there was no lightning, there's no electricity, there's no gas, there's nothing at that building that should light up, he ruled it arson. So if you notice, there's a little arson sign, up there. And so we're waiting, I guess, to see if there's anything that they need from us. The people that live right next to the place noticed that somebody was over there in a car and walked over, and it was a private fire investigator that the insurance agency hired. And they basically came to the same idea that, again, this place shouldn't have gone up. So, looks like an act of arson, looks like it started in the garage and, moved out. So I think we did the best that we could there, and again, hope that they do something to the property, because I've got a lot of people asking me what's going on. I'm like, it's up to the estate and insurance agency to do something. It's kind of, doesn't look very good, but we did what we could there. And then I had sent another thing on the agenda that's not there. I didn't make it, I didn't get the packet, so I didn't notice till today when I printed this that my other agenda item to get on there was to quickly talk about the mini pumper that we have at the city shop. We wanted to talk about the fact that we just want to start the process to investigate what we want to do with it. So way back when, 2015, when we got our new engine, we ran out of space at the hall. So the city shop and maintenance guy agreed to move the mini pumper down there. It's an older truck. If you've seen it, it's got kind of a pickup front, and it's got some water and something. We thought maybe this would be a good vehicle for if we needed something in River Shady, Lake Shady area as it gets developed. But we're talking 5-6 years now. I think we maybe use it on one call. The city has maybe used it a couple times, the water plant, so it's really, Kane's getting tired of seeing it there. We're not using it. So I guess we would just like to have permission to start the process to look at, what's the value, what would be the best way to, do bids or auction it off or something. So we haven't made a decision yet, but we'd like to do something with it. It's a city vehicle, so, we have some ideas, on what we would use the profits that would come for, we would use that maybe somewhere else for another piece of equipment. So we're not doing anything yet, but we just wanted to ask your permission to kind of start the process to see what we could do.
This is what we refer to as 592.
Yep, it's kind of the little red mini pumper there. And again, nice little vehicle, and it probably would do somebody really well, but we just don't get a lot of brush fires, so it doesn't get used. We have the 6-wheeler, we needed that. So unfortunately, it's in the way. It's not really being used by the department. And again, we think we could use, the proceeds from that to buy some needed piece of equipment that maybe would be, better. And we're kind of working on our whole strategy of, to come back to you with more of, what's kind of the future truck rotation, how do we plan to use some of the money that we've been donating to the city from in our equipment fund? What are some big ticket items kind of coming in the future? So I think, getting rid of this and then making a plan would be good.
So from a public works standpoint, Kane, are you okay with allowing them to look at this, or do you have purposes for it?
Yes, it needs to go.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right.
Yes, that was very clear. That and the old antique shop, that's another thing, but this is a city property, so, city vehicle, so. Yeah, no decisions, but just like approval to kind of start the gear going of what can we do to find maybe a better home for this.
Well, it wasn't on the agenda, and technically, we really shouldn't address it, but I think there's probably a consensus it'd be okay to do it.
Yeah, well, like I said, I don't have anything. I just wanted to get the permission to talk about it. So then in the future, then I'll give you your pictures and bids and all that kind of thing. Like I said, it was in my email, put on the agenda, it just didn't get to the agenda.
Okay. Any comments?
No.
I go ahead,
Okay.
start the process.
Okay, that's all we wanted there. Okay, then we got a couple bills. The NFPA, those are tiny, so I'm not sure why they're on the agenda. They're a bunch of smaller bills, so.
Yeah, there was one for 39,859 and then 12,127.
Yeah, just small bills. Like I said, I didn't put them on the agenda.
And the 1419.
So then, that one, that's more than 500. So just like we had talked about, in previous, for Gold Rush, we use our equipment fund for t-shirts and caps. And so this bill we missed. We had it, but we forgot to give it to you. So then the lady politely reminded us that we hadn't paid her. So yeah, so this is a bill that comes out of our equipment fund money to pay for things that, again, we use.
So this
once a year.
is just for clarification, because this is always it's out of the CIP.
Correct. Our gambling equipment fund. Correct. CIP.
The gambling
fund.
equipment fund, okay.
Gambling equipment fund.
Not
Yes.
the capital outlay.
Yeah, so this is money we put in as
Okay.
for the gambling proceeds that we put into this equipment fund, and then it's meant for usually equipment, but we also pay for, this type of thing. And it didn't happen last year because we didn't have Gold Rush. So.
Check is cut, we just need to.
Yep.
I move to pay the 1419 and 36 cents out of the account.
For an investment, equipment fund, yep.
I second that.
So just to be clear, the NFPA bills come out of my normal budget.
Normal budget. For like supplies.
That was fire prevention week.
Yep,
Yes.
yep,
Yeah, and the anchor comes out of the gambling equipment fund.
Yep.
Just be clear.
yep.
Okay.
All right, any other comments? Seeing none, all those. We have a second.
Sorry. No, you.
I second it, okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
By roll call, aye.
Aye.
Dana, aye.
Izzy, I.
Jim, I.
First responders, I just wanted to mention that, so I noticed the last couple of months that the first responders never had anything, on their agenda. And I thought maybe it was just, something happened. So I brought it up at our meeting and found out that Christina Inman was not getting any of the emails requesting agenda updates, but she was sending the minutes, which had the runs in them. And so she was falsely assuming that you were taking the runs out of the minutes. And we agreed that nobody told you to go look at the minutes to take the runs out of the.
Chris
out of
is
there.
always, we've always emailed Chris Inman, and
Okay.
he
So
has always given us
Christina
the
is-
information.
So Christina is the secretary, so she's the one that
So
should
we
be
will
getting.
add her now, but yeah, we never have in the 18 months I've been here. It's always been.
Yep.
Inman.
Yep, so,
Perfect.
so he wasn't getting it, so
Thank you.
that's why sometimes I just kind of brought it up anyway, so. When I found out that she didn't get the email, I sent her the email and said, hey, send it to the city, she sent it to you guys, but it was 2 days late, so you said, you weren't gonna do it this month, so I have the data, but if you wanna wait till next month, that's fine for the,
That's right.
we can wait till next month?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so hopefully, yeah, you need to get her email.
We'll add her to the list.
Okay.
Yep,
Yeah.
we have her email.
Okay.
For other things that we've talked to her about.
Okay, that's good.
Thank you.
And then EOC, I'm not sure, I don't think Pat was prepared to talk to them, so I'm assuming these are updates to us from previous discussions on regarding the legal fee. Because we didn't.
Right, so there was, we received a letter from our attorney. And Mike, if you want to just speak briefly to it, or I can summarize it too.
Whatever you like. I mean, it's in the packet. I don't know if we have to read it at the meeting. It's in the packet, but yeah, basically, we couldn't find any legal basis to donate money for legal fees. Alyssa, the attorney, associate attorney, had called the state agency. They had a meeting about it. They didn't know of any statute that would allow for such a donation. We couldn't find any. So we think the answer to that is no, you can't. And then the other issue related to spending the funds is more detailed, summarized in here, but basically you've got to consult with your accountant about that. There's many ways to legally spend those funds. The way you've been doing it probably isn't okay, but consult your accountant about that and they can fix it for you.
So in the letter we received, in addition to that, regarding how we use the funds, and this follows with what Pat indicated, is that we would set up a separate line item in our capital budget. So the pull tab donations that comes in on the revenue side, we would, the council would decide how we would use that 10% over the next year in the budget. And so that'd be part of our budget discussion next Monday night. And they gave us the different areas. There's 10, 14 different areas that we can use it for. And I don't know why we didn't send this letter to Pat, but we sure can send it to him.
Okay. He probably appreciate it. He could probably bring it up at our meeting so that we.
Yeah, we'll do
See
that
it.
tomorrow, or we'll make sure staff sends it to you.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, that'd be good. Okay, that's all I had.
Great, thanks, Dan. Next item is some ordinances and resolutions. Of course, these are all voice votes like we're doing tonight. The first one is ordinance 2021-08 regarding a planning and zoning accessory building area, lot size, and what is allowable square footage of all buildings related to a lot size. So that's in your packet that was updated, the information from planning and zoning. I make a motion that we approve city ordinance 2021-08.
I
Did you
second.
Did you get that second?
Jim, yep.
Jim, okay. Any other comments or discussion? Something we found a couple months ago that needed to be updated. So that was planning and zoning direction to do that, so. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, by voice vote, Ryland, aye.
Lori, I.
Dana, I.
Jim, I.
Lizzie, I.
It's approved. The next resolution, 2021-22, is a proposal for an addition. And because of the resolution we just passed, the resolution is not needed. We don't have to vote on it because the new resolution allows this person to addition, and it doesn't, it follows the guidelines that we just adopted, so. So do we need to deny the resolution or just move on?
I'm sorry, I missed it. So
The 2021-22, that person wanted a variance, and now we've
so-
adopted the, with the new guidelines, so it doesn't, it's not needed.
correct, so I would just adopt the denial. I think the resolution's denying it, right? That's what, I mean, we discussed that, right? It's denying it. So I would just adopt the resolution 2021-22 denying it. Of course, it won't, it's moved if you change the code to allow for a bigger accessory structure. So the way this, I mean, in the future, what I would have done was told the person to withdraw their application altogether in lieu of the new ordinance in that way, but they didn't. So the record might, I mean, if somebody were to go back and look at this, they might be confused. So I think for clarity's sake, you should just deny it.
Motion to deny.
Motion to adopt the resolution 2021-22 to deny the application.
So we'll use his verbiage to deny the resolution based on the other one.
I second that.
Second.
Do we have to have a voice vote on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All in favor to deny resolution 2021-22? Ryland, aye.
Lori, I.
Dana, I.
Lizzie, I.
Jim, I.
Denial's been approved. Next item is resolution 2021-25. And this is in regards to the conditional use permit for the propane tank at 510 Vintage Road Northwest. So I make a motion that we approve resolution 2021-25. Is there a second?
I'll second. Jim?
Jim? Okay, for discussion. Bruce Ryan is here. Does anybody have any questions for Bruce regarding the resolution? Looks like it met all the criteria. Appreciate the update on the green, explaining the green belt around it, so that's good. That's good. Any other comments? Seeing none, by voice vote, Ryland, aye.
Lori, I.
Jim, I.
Dana, I.
Lizzie, I.
It's approved. Along with this, we have resolution 2021-26, which is the Orion lot split into two parcels. One is for the tank area we just talked about, another one is for other purposes. Make a motion that we approve resolution 2021-26.
Second.
Lori seconds it. Any discussion? Seeing none by voice vote. Ryland, aye.
Lori, I.
Jim, I.
Dana, I.
Lizzie, I.
That's approved. Next item is resolution 2021-27. And this was put in the packet. Should we be in a position to award the contracts for the infrastructure and for the wastewater treatment plant. And at this point, we are still working with getting everything in line. Orinoco Estates, the agreement. We're doing an income survey that CEDA's doing for us. Or for Orinoco Estates, I should say. So we're just not quite ready to release or to award the bids. hopefully the plan would be at the latest, would be doing it at the November council meeting. And should everything fall in place with the agreements, then we can move forward, depending on when it happens, but hopefully be soon. We may consider having a special meeting just to award the contracts. But we won't know that until we have a better idea when that might be.
So we're really working with Orinoco Estates on their wastewater agreement, and then the other piece is the loan and grant agreements need to get executed through PFA. And so a couple moving parts there, but all of those pieces are in progress kind of simultaneously, so.
So the contractors are anxious to get going, and Joe is keeping him abreast on a weekly basis how that's going, so. All right, we'll move on and we'll have Chris Geeson and Ron Ziegler from CEDA here with us tonight.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Bruce.
My name is Chris Geeson. I'm a vice president with Community and Economic Development Associates, or CEDA. We're based out of Chatfield. We're a 501c3 nonprofit that specializes in economic development consulting.
Do a sound check. Can everybody hear Chris on the line?
Yes.
Now I speak up too, so, perfect. So my name is Chris. I work with CEDA. The mayor had asked us to attend tonight to talk about some of the services we might be able to provide at Orinoco and answer any questions you might have. I'm joined by our CEO, Ron Ziegler. He's available for questions too. I got designated to be the spokesman tonight, so. But in your packets, you should have just kind of a little rack card of kind of our overview of what we do, how we work, and then also our annual report. And that's a document that we put together every year that summarizes the projects that we work on in different communities. Every community that we work with has a little bit different philosophy, a little different personality, a little different, opportunities and projects to work on. So it kind of gives you a flavor of the things that we are asked to do and that we can help out with here. You get a lot of opportunities being up too with your sewer project. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for growth. So it's kind of exciting, growing up in the area, seeing everything that's happened in this whole corridor. But kind of how we operate is we provide staff that actually will work out of the City Hall office with you, maybe one day every other week, day of the week, all the way up to full time if you guys wanted to. We have a few of those contracts out there. Our most popular one is probably one day a week. Just that provides enough time to kind of really dig in, become part of the community and work with business owners, work with the community leaders to move those projects forward. A lot of times people will try us out too. They might do start with a smaller contract, work way up to a larger contract to see how things work. How we structure our contracts is kind of unique. What we do is we have a 30-day out clause. So if things aren't working, we can pull the plug, you can pull the plug. It's no long-term obligation. That's something we feel is, we have to provide a bang for the buck. If we're not, that's a problem that we have to solve. So, but we work with a number of cities in the area and counties in the area as well. We're based out of Chatfield, just down the road. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this point, or if there's a particular item you guys would like us to kind of talk about, I'd be happy to do so as well.
I got a couple of questions. One is for this fee, we budgeted, proposed budget has a year contract, one day every other week. If we decide to wait till, say, June or July to start the contract, is there any problem with starting and?
Technically, no. The kind of the practical thing is we want to make sure we have somebody that can serve the contract. So depending on what your timing is, we probably would want to work with you guys well in advance of that so that we can place somebody here. If it's somebody that's one day a week for an entire year, that's probably a different conversation than trying to pick somebody up mid-year. We'd probably try to maybe find somebody that has some extra capacity. We have that, so it's not too much of a worry on our end, especially knowing if that's the intention. We plan for that.
So how much notice do you need?
As much as you can give.
Days or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I would say a few months just to know what you guys are thinking of, but I would imagine through your budgeting process, we'll have a good idea. If you guys said, let's do a 1 day a week contract starting in the first of the year. Go to work, finding somebody that will be able to fill that, whether that's internally or a new hire. We're bringing some new people on right now to do some different shifts and different replacements. So it's nothing that's unusual. We just have to look to see who that person would be.
So if we pursue this contract and we need some grant writing, is that additional cost for grant writing versus the contract?
Most of the time, no. A lot of times our communities will just have us work that into the contract that we have with you. It's just a part of the service. There is times where there's maybe more projects on their plate that deadlines come up, or there's a specialty that you guys might choose to buy additional time from us, and that's something we can do kind of à la carte. The communities that I work with, most often, I'm the one that's writing the grants, just a part of the time that I'm working there in the city. So that's just part of the work plan.
So if we did want a grant, just approach the EDA, say Parks wants to do a path.
Yeah.
So you would research potential grant projects for us or grant
Absolutely,
applications?
yeah, oh, yeah, yep. So that'd be something that could definitely be worked into the work plan. Typically, I work with the city of Harmony, which is about the size of Orinoco, and it's not uncommon to do some, park grants, ambulance grants, fire trucks grants, things like that, just to depend on what projects are going on, so. And if there's one right now where it's a small cities block grant with some rehab, that's one I don't have specialty with. It's a very long-term project. It takes additional manpower there. So that is something that they're hiring us for extra time, but it's all up to you guys how you want to run that.
Your grant writers that we've used before have set a pretty high bar for us, so we have high expectations.
Well, and that's one of the cool things though, is that we always have them available on the team. So you might be getting one person in the office that you see the face of every week or every other week or whatever that might be. But Abby on our grants department, or Allison or Courtney, they're all available to give a second look and help out with. So you get us all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions from online?
I got a question. I was wondering how, if you can give me examples of common ways organizations or cities have rationalized their investments that they've made in CDEC.
That's a really good question. We like to move the ball forward. We want to see the needle move. And that's really what we do as an organization. Return on investment in economic development is very hard to quantify. It takes time. It's very difficult to say, we want a fast food restaurant within 3 months, for example. But what we want to see is we want to see a clear work plan that we work with the city to develop and to move those priorities forward and be able to report back as to where we are on that work plan, and then have end results that do materialize. There's always kind of the unknowns that occur. People decide to not move forward with a project. Things fall apart, things cost too much. That's just part of the game. But we want to move that ball forward. We want to be able to make Orinoco a better place while we're here. And I guess when you look at the kind of the report out on that, we like to put together an annual report for our communities, just kind of an activity report at the end of the year or the beginning of the year, kind of depending on how it flows. But kind of outlining what we have done, what we would work on. In our newer contracts especially, we like to provide kind of a weekly or monthly summary, depending on how much time we're here, just to kind of know where we were at and what's coming up and that kind of thing. And then we work with the city leadership as well to make sure that we are working on that work plan in the appropriate way. So whether that's with the mayor, the EDA chair, public works director, whoever the most appropriate person would be at that point.
Got it. So it sounds like there's a project plan, excuse me, that details kind of at the out front what the goals of the engagement are, the particular calendar year, or whatever time frame, if that's relevant, and then you continually kind of assess where you're at throughout the year, and then year end we say this is what we've achieved against those particular goals and kind of success metrics, understanding that there's always a chaos factor involved.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. You know, and it's a relationship. We want to invest in that relationship just as much as you guys are investing in us. And so that comes in the time that comes into learning the community. And we feel that really is important to be in-house to be able to become part of the Orinoco fabric. And that's really where we find our success is that as that program matures, people know that, you know, Mondays or Tuesdays or whatever day of the week is when our person's here. They call, they stop by. I mean, it takes a life of its own once our person's kind of ingrained in the community.
I have another question. So I'll go ahead.
I was gonna say thanks.
Thank you.
So as we go forward, you know, I think the future is, you know, we're anticipating growth with our sewer water project. So as we look at Economic Development Authority, EDA, or maybe other acronyms for such a development that involves business people, community, council members, whatever. From a city our size, what would you envision happening and how soon? Is it like 2023 or later, or what's the process?
In terms of establishing an EDA or
Yeah,
some sort of
yeah.
organization, I think you could probably do that next year. I don't think it's too long of a process from a legal standpoint. It's probably a 60 to 90-day process by the time you go through the motions and hearings and publications to actually form one. Probably the longer part of that is going to be an internal discussion with the city council as to what you're comfortable having that look like. You know, there's some different avenues that you can go through, whether that's the EDA or the council functioning as the EDA. By law, you have to have at least two of you on that new committee, so you could have public members as well. You can limit, you know, the EDAs are kind of their own animal, but the city council can give as much or as little leeway to that animal as you guys choose. And then so it's really kind of an interesting process to set up, but most cities in your position are probably going to have maybe a 5-member EDA. 2 of them are city council members, 3 are from the public. They meet regularly. They're kind of a department of the city, for the lack of a better term. So by and large, they're reporting and getting everything approved by you on a somewhat regular basis before things
So
actually happen.
you or the representative from C would be part of that discussion.
Absolutely. We would certainly be happy to help you set that up. I could see that being a good project, kind of the first thing on the priority list.
Does it need a budgeted item to do that? Do we need to open the budget for an EDA?
Not necessarily. You could operate with a zero budget, depending on how you want to pay for any staff or materials or things like that. But it can be just a function of a new city department, essentially. You can use all the processes that the city already has for supplies and materials and things like that. Yeah.
Good.
Good.
Okay. Good. Anybody else have a question for Chris? Well, thank you, Chris, for your coming up here to Orinoco, and Ron too. Thank you for your time.
We certainly appreciate it, and we're always happy to work on a per project basis too. So we're just happy to be of help. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, we'll jump back to our agenda, and we're at water and sewer. Joey, you just want to make some brief comments through those 3 items?
Sure. First, the financial update associated with the wastewater treatment facility. So we had the opportunity to meet with Mike Bubani last night, and Mike and I have been working together on essentially preparing the cash flow statements associated with the issuance of the Clean Water and Drinking Water Revolving Fund loan funds that would fund essentially the local share of the Orinoco wastewater system and the associated water main improvements. So I think we had a good discussion last night. Mike is a great resource, and he's been helpful from my perspective, and I think from the council's perspective. Not certainly my expertise, so I don't have a lot to add in that area, but hopefully does the council have any items that you want me to take back to Mike or ask additional questions? I think he's going to provide some additional kind of printouts of some of the scenarios we looked at. I'm sure Mike will get that to us in the coming days. But again, hopefully the council has some level of comfort with the approach that Mike kind of laid out. And, you know, assuming you do, we'll continue to use that to develop these cash flow statements that we are continually submitting to the Public Facilities Authority. Essentially, they want us to demonstrate how we can pay back their loan. And so that's what we're doing in this part of our loan application. And so the assumption is that we'll continue down that path unless we hear differently. Item number 2 is the contract award of the 3 construction contracts that were bid at the end of August and early September. Mayor had mentioned that earlier. We had a resolution for award of that project. We kind of delayed award until we get a little farther in the grant application, not grant application, the grant agreement execution and the loan application execution, as well as the Orinoco Estates wastewater agreement. And so again, all of those items are kind of in motion, and we'll award that, bring that forward again when those pieces are in place for the council to consider award. But I do, as you mentioned, get very frequent calls from the contractors. They're anxious. They want to see the project awarded as soon as they can so that they can essentially lock in the prices from their suppliers, because as we all know, there's a lot of variability out there, and that equals risk, and people don't like that. And understandably, that's why I try to do my best to let them know where we're at and how that decision-making process is going. And so I'll continue to do that. We'll go down that path. And as far as the Orinoco Estates, it's not an easement agreement. It's actually a wastewater service agreement. And so obviously Orinoco Estates has been a partner working with the city of Orinoco on this project. And essentially Mike and I have been working on an agreement, a fairly complicated agreement with Orinoco Estates over the last couple of months. And we've sent that draft agreement to Orinoco Estates for their review. We have a meeting on Friday with Orinoco Estates to kind of discuss their review comments at that point. So, but in very brief terms, that Orinoco Estates wastewater agreement kind of lays out the terms and conditions that Orinoco would provide wastewater service, and how, what would that cost Orinoco Estates. And in very general terms, Orinoco Estates represents about 11% of the wastewater treatment facility capacity. And so we've given them a 55,000 gallon per day waste load allocation that they can discharge to the wastewater treatment facility. And so that cost plus some of the infrastructure improvements necessary to convey the wastewater from Orinoco Estates to the treatment facility make up the cost that the city of Orinoco would be charging Orinoco Estates to be part of the project. And so we'd essentially assess those costs to the property owner. I think it's about $841,000 over a 20-year term. And we'd essentially be taking out a low interest loan through PFA to facilitate finance of that for them. And then in addition to that, or I should say that 55,000 gallon allocation, we've allowed some growth for Orinoco Estates to occur over the next 20 years. Right now, they're about 210 units. They kind of project that they'll grow to about 316. So they've got a decent amount of growth over the next 20 years. And that agreement allows some expansion with some constraints, of course. And then the city would be also charging Orinoco Estates for wastewater use, just like you charge any other resident. So there's the initial assessment for the capital improvement, and then there's the monthly fee. And so we look at, they're all mobile home units. And so a mobile home unit per Orinoco's code is 0.8 or 80% of equivalent residential units. So essentially they pay 80% of the base fee for the monthly charge plus a usage charge at $5 per 1,000 gallons. And so that's all laid out in the agreement. It's consistent with the way we would be charging residents within the city of Orinoco itself. And we're meeting with them to advance that agreement, and hopefully if they agree and we work that out, we'll be bringing that to the city council in the next month.
Yeah, we have 2 meetings this week, Monday and coming Friday. So we're trying to move it along, and hopefully they'll come back with an agreement that is acceptable to them. We can move on. All right. Thanks, Joe. Streets and roads. A speeding update in your packet is a Sergeant Chambers was here in September, but we didn't get to his portion until later, and he had to leave. So basically, the Zumbo Hills Drive average speed was 29.71. And that was, below 30 miles an hour, very comparable to the West Center Street, which I think was 29.84, if I'm going from memory. So when I asked Sergeant Chambers and based on his experience, what the data shows is his opinion is we really don't have a speeding problem as such. He feels there are people speeding over 30 miles an hour. That's a given, but the average is below the speed limit. So he does feel that the driver feedback signs or the radar indicator signs, the solar power that we're going to be talking about here in just a few minutes, would be a good step, and we can move those around from city street to city street. We can collect data just like they collected data off of the county ones that they used. So we can continue to monitor our speed, where we want to put them on Minnesota Avenue, Lake Shady, West Center, Zumbo Hills, Second Avenue, wherever we want to put them. They're solar powered, so we got opportunities to continue to monitor our speeding, or speed limits, I should say. Any other comment before moving to Timberline? Okay. Timberline Drive intersection and Second Avenue Southeast. It's obviously it's over on the southeast side, and it's at the knoll of a hill where Timberline has a stop sign that moves, that traffic can move on to Second Avenue. So it's always been a concern of several people or others, or just in general, because of the visibility. And so Joe and I and Kane met there a couple weeks ago, and we talked about the different options. And what we ended up coming away from that discussion is to propose reducing the speed 20 miles an hour before on the south side and also on the north side of the hill. So there's a quick PowerPoint in your council packet that shows the situation with the 2 views. We have the 3 driveways that are blind. In some cases, it's one on top and one on the north side, one on the south side. We also have a row of mailboxes that are blind coming from the north. And we also have a 20-foot road where this is all taking place. So people like myself and Dana that live in the area, it's very common to meet traffic. It's in the middle of the road as it crosses the hill. And in fact, if you look at the picture that I put in there, the one car is pretty close to the middle too, coming up over the hill from the north to the south. It's very typical because of the narrow school buses, FedEx, everybody. Not to say they fly through there, but they're going 30 miles an hour at the crest of that hill. So we really think it needs to have some attention for people to slow down. And so the proposal is to replace the slow signs on either side of the hill to the 20-mile-an-hour sign to reduce speed coming up to the top of the hill and down the backside. There's people walking on the street as well. And so it's, I think we've all probably experienced having to swerve around visitors or residents walking and everything. So we think it's a very appropriate change. And we would also, on Second Avenue, there's two 30-mile-an-hour signs on the south side. We've removed the one. And there's also a 30-mile-an-hour sign on the east side between 5th Street and 6th Street. So the plan would be to remove those as well.
Ryland, I have some questions.
Sure.
So this obviously isn't an area that we've talked about or that was
No, it's not.
put within the speed study. So I mean, I think it's needed, but I'm a little curious as how it came to be that, you know, you spent the time there. And then I think if we're gonna order speed signs, are we better off doing a solar power speed sign there as another option? And then why jump to the 20 when we aren't jumping to the 20 anywhere else that we've actually been looking at?
Good question. Mainly is because I live there and experience the hill all the time, driving, and it's also coming from the neighbor too, that lives in, the gentleman that lives on the north side of the intersection. And people come flying over the hill at doing 30 miles an hour or higher, and he sees these things happening, and he brought to Kane's attention, and it's always been a comment that he shared with me whenever we talk. And so we did put the slow signs there, and he says that has improved, it has reduced the traffic. And I guess the whole speed conversation with what we've talked about at Center Street and Zumwalt Hills, and this kind of falls in that area of what can we do to, in this case, make it safer because of the blind driveways and the blind mailboxes coming from the north.
Which I mean, I agree about, I've walked on that hill and I've driven on that, and I agree. I just feel like we're gonna take action and change speeds in an area that none of us have talked about until tonight. We haven't done any speed studies on, and we have this other area that we've done now a study on, and we're not doing anything like this. So I think I understand where you're coming from. I just think we need to follow through with these other areas. You don't know that people are studying or are speeding because you haven't studied it. It's the same thing, like you can say, you know, the people in the other areas are saying, oh, people are speeding, and then in reality, they're not. So I feel like we just need to be cautious with moving forward with a 20 mile an hour. And I think if we're gonna do a 20 mile an hour, then we do an all citywide on city streets unless otherwise marked 20 miles an hour.
So I 100% agree with what Lori is saying. It was really concerning to me to see this area get so much attention and action when we've been working on the other side, and we've had 0 people write in. I have never received an email in my packet. I have never had a single person come to a council meeting about this hill. I live there and I agree it's a disaster of a hill. The mailboxes are in a horrible place. I think that actually is the worst problem of all of it. And but we've had people come to us as the council from the other side of town with concerns, and we basically decided to do nothing. So I would feel really strange about suddenly deciding to change this with no speed study. No, I haven't heard anybody's complaints. And yeah, I experience it, of course, every single day, many times. We do have another option to go in and out of our neighborhood. Nobody has to take that hill except the people that live on Timberline Drive and in those houses up there. So I also agree that I think if we were to do this, I think we should think about changing speeds in town, but I think we should think of it as a comprehensive plan and look at all the areas that are of concern, not just a few specific ones. And then address speeds that way instead of changing them randomly.
I would agree with both Lori and Dana. I mean, because if you really look at it, not just picking on West Center, but we know that we've, you know, to both of your points, we've done speed tests on West Center is one of them. And we have the same actual setup on West Center where we have one street converging into another on a hill, on the knob of a hill. So I agree. I think I would hold off on this and look at it much broader, or consider, Rylan, what you're saying with the signs and decide, okay, where are good places for these signs? Because I think we saw in the speed tests or the studies that people had slowed down as a result of these signs, correct?
The slow signs that are there, you're right.
Well, I mean, you know, the digital, people just seeing that, knowing that, hey, this is being monitored.
Now, Sergeant Chambers is very positive about the signs. The feedback signs will help draw awareness, and the signs at the same time will give us that feedback immediately, because we do have the software and the signs, and we may see the average speed drops to 27 miles an hour or whatever. So there is feedback that we're going to get from using these signs.
I do like the
signs on
slow
Second
sign.
Avenue too. So we do have, you know, there is a plan to use these radar feedback signs to educate or make drivers aware of how fast they are going. And so that would be our plan across the city. If I remember correctly, I don't believe Sergeant Chambers thought 25, lowering our speeds to 25 is, I mean, we can do that, but it's really, it may not solve the speeders,
But then why suggest it for this hill?
sorry,
Then why suggest it for this location?
mainly because of the blind spots.
But you're saying in one hand, it may or may not work, but then on this street, it will.
I really like the slow signs that have been put up. We've never had those in the past. I think they're very helpful. Another thing I've seen before is like blind intersection. You know, there's signs that alert people, drivers, things to that. And I know I'm not the same as everybody, but I pay attention when I see a sign like that. So I think that there's maybe some options there. I think maybe continuing the slow, I like the slow signs, keep them there. And then maybe adding a blind intersection. I think we can definitely take away one of those 30-mile-per-hour signs. I don't know why we have so many over on that street when we don't have signs on any other streets. But I think a huge difference, and I don't know if this is anything the city can deal with or if it has to be the post office, but I think having those mailboxes at the top of that hill moved would be an enormous relief for me as when I come up there, when my kids are driving and stuff like that, for people's safety. So I think that would be a better step, a more useful step than decreasing a speed, which we've already agreed people don't always do anyway.
You know, and another even more obvious option, you know, what happens if you put a stop sign, you know, make a three-way stop out of it? Not saying we should do that, but that makes people stop, you know.
Well, they talked about that, and which it wouldn't really work either because of the steepness of that hill,
Right.
And not really get up it in
Well,
winter.
yeah, and especially winter, you'd slide back down,
Yeah.
just like
Yeah,
ours
and-
too. Yeah,
Right.
that's true.
For a lot of this too, we're a small city and I've been thinking that we can get a long ways by just appealing to everybody's sense of decency and community and maybe just ask people to slow down a bit. You know, we're all out more because of the pandemic. We're outside, we're walking. You know, just making people aware would be helpful.
And I know up in our area, Lizzie, you know, it outlets to a gravel road, and we see a lot of people coming in that they're not even in city limits, and they're coming from over by the campground and County Road 31 in that area, and they just fly. They hit my driveway, and it's just, well, before they hit my driveway, it's like, all right, you can hear them throttle it up, and they're flying. You know, so I think to your point, yes, I think you would get that out of people in the city, but the outsiders, I don't think you would.
Well, it's been a good discussion. I guess I would, you know, like I said, the slow signs have helped and the neighbor has told us that. And we can sure just leave the slow signs and we can use at some time we can rotate the new feedback signs along on Second Avenue and bring that to their attention as well.
Ryland, what is your knowledge about mailbox move? I mean, what would we have to do to petition for that?
It's strictly a discussion with the residents and the postmaster. I don't see the city's never been involved with post office boxes.
I know, because I know they did try to get it moved and they were unable to. So I didn't know if we could help in any way, or if that's just not anything we have.
You know, Dana, were they meeting the requirement, the setback requirement? Because you're saying it sticks out into the street, or it's too
So
close to the street?
It's on the top of the hill. So
Yeah.
like for people that go get their mail, they either have to park on top
Oh, I
of
see.
it,
Yeah.
or they have to park on the street up there, which is
Right. Yeah.
and walk across the top of the hill. So
Yeah.
extremely-
It's not a good situation either way.
No,
Yeah.
it's very dangerous. And I know that the residents a long time ago, before there was this many, maybe if there's more now, they can try again. But I think that would help a lot. It would help ease my mind when I'm driving over the hill, knowing that there's no getting the mail, or the mailman or mail person themselves
Right.
stopped up there. But
People on Timberline Drive or use the boxes, if they want to approach the postmaster in Pine Island, they can start that discussion to see if there's anything that can be done.
I mean, I think that would help congestion up there, and I think that would help alleviate some of the issues that people see.
The postmaster in Pine Island?
Yes, they're charging this one here. Yeah, they're charging this one. Okay, so we'll leave the signs where the slow signs, and we'll just continue to monitor and use the feedback signs. So that leads us into the next item of the approval for the solar signs. So the city was awarded a $5,000 grant from State Farm Safety Community Grant towards signs. We have the funds, and Kane has proposals from TAPCO in our package. The sign that we were put in our application a year ago is now an older sign. It's meant to be more for parking lots and private streets, I think is what he said. So Kane, if you just want to come to the podium real quick and just talk about the one that you're thinking that we purchased.
Yes, what I suggest is the Safe Pace Evolution 12. It's a 12-inch sign made for public streets. It has all of the data collection. We do pay a yearly fee for that per sign. Well, we will use this as a tool for speeding throughout the town.
How much is the grant money for again?
5,000.
5,000. So we would be spending $2,406 from our street maintenance account, which we have funds for. So I make a motion that we approve the purchase of a Safe Pace Evolution 12 sign from TAPCO.
Second.
Second?
Was that Dana? Okay, yeah, she's sick, I can't understand.
All right, any other comments? I think it'd be a great addition to the community, and I think the residents would appreciate it too. If not, all those in favor? Ryland, aye.
Lori, I.
Dana, I.
Lizzie, I.
Jim, I.
Thank you. Next item is a right-of-way ordinance. And there's items in your packet regarding trees, how different cities, our particular code 92.04 is in the packet of how we address trees and maintenance on them. And we've also got input from Pine Island, Mazeppa, and Plainview. A lot of common wording in the ordinance, and I guess the idea, the discussion revolves around, do we have enough details in our current section 92.04, which is trees and vegetation menacing public safety to be reported. Talks about a tree shall not overhang closer than 13 feet above the surface of the street, or closer than 8 feet above a public sidewalk, which we probably don't have just a couple places like that. So I think and Kane, if you'd want to come to the podium just real quick again, what is your expectation that the ordinance isn't covering right now?
So if there's a tree growing within the right of way, it's the city's responsibility. Can we remove that tree? Can we remove that shrub if it's in the right of way?
I think the challenge we have here in Orinoco is that we have such 100-foot right of ways. We could,
Yes, there's some large right of ways.
or 80-foot right of ways, so.
I know, like in front of my house, I got about 2 feet to the right of way from my house, so. And it's a dead end, there's 4 houses on a dead end, there's 100-foot right of way, so. Then again, we have other parts of town, Cedar Woodlands, that have very narrow right of ways. There's a 44-foot right of way in Cedar Woodlands. What brought this up was there was some fire hydrants that were surrounded by trees, rocks, shrubs, you name it. And then there's also another fire hydrant surrounded by a retaining wall within inches of a fire hydrant. So I just need some direction as far as the edge of the right of way is typically the fire hydrant. That's the edge of the right of way. We can all agree to that, right?
It's on city property.
Yep, city right of way. So is it our duty as Public Works, as the city, to maintain that right of way? And the discussions we've had with Joe is yes, we should maintain our right of ways.
So do we maintain the right of ways only if they impede on the street itself? Because why would you go back and take a tree up 20 feet from the right of way from the street?
If it's on private property or what do
It's still in the right of way. Our right of ways are so wide. But
right?
we're not going to go out and take trees down that are 15, 20 feet from the street edge, still in the right of way.
Right. So I'm asking is, what is that distance?
10 feet.
Is it 10 feet? Is it 5 feet? What is that? Because there's certain parts of town where we have trees that are small now, but someday they will be large and they will be a problem. So we just kind of need to have a plan of whose responsibility that is. If it's in the right of way, it should be our responsibility.
So Mike, this is kind of a heads up on if you know of any other situations or you don't need to respond tonight, but if you want to just take a look at this and come back.
Right, I mean, generally cities, and you have a right-of-way ordinance in Orinoco, cities should always have a right-of-way ordinance where you adopt that ordinance and basically says you are, and there's a statute that says cities can adopt or an ordinance if they want to, and almost every city has done that. It says we are electing as the city of Orinoco to maintain our right of way and regulate our right of way. And so that ordinance, yours is extremely short. The League of Minnesota Cities has a model that's about 100 times longer than yours, and yours is like a sentence, and theirs is like 10 pages.
Like simplicity.
So, but that just gives you the right to regulate the right of way, and what is placed within the right of way. And so this might be an issue of your right of way ordinance. On the other hand, it might be just a nuisance issue. I mean, if people have shrubs that are within, so close to a fire hydrant, isn't that a public nuisance that we can enforce the nuisance code and it has nothing to do with the right of way? I mean, that's what it seems like to me.
That's for fire hydrants.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can see that being separate. Yep.
right.
So
So,
fire hydrants is 20 feet around diameter.
Yep.
yeah, so those are those issues, I guess. What do you want me to do? I guess,
Well,
So
go ahead, Kate.
can I say something? We have a resident that has asked us to trim their trees. One part of their yard is grass, all the way up to the blacktop. The other portion of the yard is wooded, and they want these trees trimmed so they have better visibility. Well, they maintain their one property, the grass, their yard, all the way up to the pavement, right? Their front yard, but now they have this little side yard that's wooded, and they want us to trim the trees now.
why would you trim the trees if it's in their yard?
It's in the right of way. The right of way is 100 feet, remember?
But it's also their yard. I mean, my mailbox is in the right of way too.
Right. So that's where I need some direction here is, these people think it's our responsibility because it's the right of way, but really are they supposed to maintain up to the blacktop?
So in my experience in that situation, if it impedes operation and maintenance of the roadway or the drainage facility, then Public Works can come in there and do some maintenance and trim back trees. But if it's for somebody else's purposes aside from the public good, then it is not your responsibility.
Right, and that's what the election of right-of-way maintenance says. It doesn't give us the obligation to maintain the right-of-way, it gives us the right to maintain the right-of-way. So I think you just need to tell them no. Yeah,
So that language that he just said, it's not an obligation to maintain, it's the right to maintain.
Correct.
I like that.
I do too, yeah.
And what do you do with the ones that don't maintain? For instance, I know on our street there's an area where the trees and everything come right up to the edge of the blacktop. So isn't there a requirement to maintain, so many feet from the street?
in my experience, Jim, that's in the nuisance code. And there's
Okay.
usually a nuisance provision that says you can't have, it's a visibility for automobile issue, like it has to be safe, you can't have branches overhanging, and usually there's like a number of feet where they can't overhang, and then there's, sometimes you can't place a shrub so high over 3 feet or a fence so high within so many feet of the curb. So, but that to me seems more of a nuisance issue, not a maintenance of the right of way issue.
Okay, good.
Just maybe a suggestion for us, could we, maybe bring it back to the agenda, for like a 2022 topic that we could,
Sure.
because I think you're right, the ordinance should probably be rewritten and drawn up. But the next 2 months are gonna be a little crazy but I think especially going into next year, I think this is a really good.
So
time.
January
So-
22.
Yeah, to make a motion.
So I will make a motion to bring this back to council. 92.04 ordinance trees and vegetation. Menacing public safety to be reported. That's the ordinance to the January 2022 meeting.
I'll second that.
And in the meantime,
I
for
think
Kane,
too,
you just tell them no, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have any obligation to go cut their trees. They have better visibility. So I just,
Got it.
Well, let's take a look at the nuisance code as well and see how that would, I don't know, if maybe you've looked at that too, but. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
Any other comments? All those in favor by roll call, Ryland, aye.
Lori, I.
Dana,
Jim.
I.
Jim, I.
Lizzie, I.
That's approved. Parks and Trails, we have a pay request from Dirt Pros on the Zumbro River flood repairs and mitigation. I make a motion that we pay the first request for $74,185.50.
Second.
Any comments? Looks like they're doing a great job on the south branch. They're getting ready to do the north branch.
Making progress.
All right.
Does that all get inspected, as this is happening to make sure that it's being done as it was, planned?
Yes,
Just
we
out of
have,
curiosity.
we have staff out there that do some inspection. and,
Okay.
Meet with the contractor, provide some guidance. DNR has also been on site a couple times too, so.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, all those in favor? Ryland, aye.
Lori, I.
Dana, I.
Lizzie, I.
Jim, I.
Right, that's approved.
One quick note on that pay request, on the bottom of the pay request, the payments are supposed to be sent to the bonding company. So just.
I got that email and information. I printed it. Yep,
Perfect.
yep.
Public Works, we have a panel replacement on the playground equipment in River Park. So I make a motion that we approve $716.54.
Second.
Any other comments? All in favor, Ryland, aye.
Lori, I.
Dana, I.
Lizzie, I.
Jim, I.
It's approved. Downtown Orinoco Gold Rush Days. We had a celebration here at our Gold Rush meeting for Carol Olson, who retired after 30 years as our event coordinator. It was a great event, and I think there might be a write-up this week in the Zumbro paper, Zumbrota paper. So there's 2 trees that we're looking at planting on either side around where the bench that Carol gave to the city with memorial money for her husband that passed away about a year ago. And so these 2 trees would be planted in the park, and I make a motion that we approve the planting of these trees.
Second.
And hopefully the planting will be done first week in November, but it should be plenty of time, so. All those in favor, Ryland, aye.
Lori, I.
Dana, I.
Lizzie, I.
Jim, I.
It's approved, thank you. Jump down to personnel, we're gonna move closed the session down to before agenda, so we have a LMC liability coverage item that's I can do this someplace. It's a formality that we've done in the past. We've declined the waiver form with the LMC. And in the past, we've checked the box that says the member does not waive the monetary limits on municipal tort liability established by Minnesota statute 466.04. So I make a motion that we check the box that says does not waive the monetary limits.
Second.
Second, All right, Lori? Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, Ryland, aye.
Lori, I.
Lizzie, I.
Jim, I.
Aye.
This item is a tri-state maintenance agreement for the copier machine for the next year. It's $863.14. And that would increase an 8% increase from this current year of $799.20, which includes paper and, as you saw in the agreement there, so. I make a motion that we approve the new agreement from September 11th, 2021 to September 10th, 2022 for $863.14.
Second.
Second, Jim,
Yes.
comments?
We need
All-
paper?
What's that?
We need paper?
Newspaper, right, very many paper, 15,000. All those in favor, Ryland, aye.
Lori, I.
Dana, aye.
Lizzie, I.
Jim, I.
Approved. Next item under petitions, requests and communications. This is something that was tabled from last year or from last month. This is a Stantec providing submitted a quote for us and an explanation of how a planner, they're planning professional planning services to the city of Orinoco. Would work in conjunction with our engineer, Joe Palin. And it went through, if you had a chance to read those 6 points of what they would offer the city. Joe, you want to speak to this briefly or anything, comments?
Yeah, this service kind of dovetails into the work that I do. For example, you know, when there's a proposed development or a commercial development, or even in some instances, a lot split or a commercial improvement, I look at things from a municipal engineering standpoint. So how can we get sewer and water to it? What does the access configuration need to look like? How do they access the public highway? How do the drainage facilities work? You know, how do we meet the MPDS stormwater requirements? Sure that stormwater coming off of the new development doesn't impact adjacent properties and facilities. And then there's looking at the code and looking at the zoning pieces and the subdivision ordinance, and making sure that all of those various items are in compliance with the proposed facility. And so the folks on the planning side have a lot of expertise in that. They do a lot of code writing. They help Phil, for example, help the city with the future land use plan. They do that. They're used to dealing with codes, interpreting codes, and providing kind of guidance and facilitating that review process and helping planning and zoning and city councils understand the issues and make decisions. And so it's really a supplemental piece that, you know, kind of takes some burden off the city staff and provides some expertise if and when needed. And so all of the work could be completed on an hourly basis when you want help, just kind of like services I provide. So I think as a budgetary process and just to have an understanding of what folks in the planning group could assist the city with, we put the letter together for you.
So when a request comes to you, there would be a report back to staff then, or how to proceed, or things to be aware of, or?
Well, yeah, you know, it really kind of depends on what the issue is and how council and staff want to proceed. You know, we can provide different levels of service based on what you want. Obviously, the more time we put in, you know, the more cost it is. All the work is on an hourly basis, but you know, depending on the complexity of the issue and staff workloads, you know, we can assist to whatever level fits your need.
So are we already utilizing this service?
Not usually unless there is a specific question or item that I would bring Phil in, but in the past, we haven't done a lot of that.
So why do you think that we need it now?
You've asked for that. From the municipal standpoint, from sewer, water, roads, stormwater, all that stuff, I have the expertise sitting here to answer those questions. But in terms of interpreting your zoning ordinances and looking at more complex issues, it's nice to have people that is what they do. And have that expertise. And if you have questions, then I can simply turn to them and have them help, or have them have staff, or have, P and Z or council contact those folks directly and get the answers that you might want. So they really provide value, especially on more complex issues or when staff availability isn't there.
So, I mean, I work in a lot of cities and a lot of cities have this. And so where I see what the person would do is when you get a rezoning application or a conditional use permit application, specifically conditional use permit or variance, there's criteria that are supposed to be met to grant those permits, right? And what the planner would do is prepare a memo or a report, and this is number 3 and number 4 of the letter from Stantec. They'll prepare a report that says, here, and they do a nice memo or a report that kind of breaks down all the factors of the use permit or variance and says, here are the proposed finding that I, the planner, have determined based on my review of your city code and my review of the application. This can't be granted because, or it can be granted, and here are the findings. And so right now, I actually suggested this to Ryland because they're asking me a lot of that, and it's not really a legal task. I mean, the legal task is helping to draft or review the resolutions that are drafted. Either I draft or I review it, and making sure and answering questions about the process, like, have we met the process standards, or if there's a technical question about the code. I'm working with planners all the time on those issues. The planners interpret the code, but sometimes they want my opinion on that interpretation. And I'll answer technical legal questions, but they're preparing the staff report. I mean, I don't prepare a staff report. So right now, for example, in the packet for this meeting, I mean, there is a lot of land use permits and stuff. A garage addition, that was like a conditional use permit and ordinance that related to that same issue. The Ryan conditional use permit, the Ryan lot split. So there's no staff reports in here. So the planning and zoning gets it. And they don't really know, they don't.
It's because planning and zoning is basically taking their limited knowledge and
Right.
kind of going through. So this would help planning and zoning
Correct.
come to the agreement maybe faster.
The
And
zoning
help us-
administrator? Is that what this would take the place of? Sorry, Lori.
Say that again?
So is this basically taking the place of or acting as like a planning and zoning administrator for the city?
Kind of, it's kind of like having a staff person on call to, guide, help put the information in front of planning and zoning and ultimately the council to make decisions. Not have, people on the committee pouring through the code and trying to figure it out. And
It just, what I noticed is there's just, I don't think it's planning and zoning's fault necessarily, but there's just some disorganization with, they get these complex applications and really I'm not qualified to, look at the technical aspects of the code and the map of the property and say where a fence should go. I mean, that's not, really, it's not a clerk, deputy clerk's job to do that, or even an administrator necessarily. I mean, it's more of a planning function. Now, I will say other cities do not have this and they have the administrator do it and they just do the best they can.
Right.
And so I'd say it's half and half maybe. So.
We don't have an administrator either,
Right,
so.
right. So there's been some stressful
Yeah,
things trying to get it done like at the last minute. And I get an email that we need all this reviewed and it's like, and it's just that you don't,
Right.
And maybe it's not this, I mean, I suggested this as a possible way to fix that. I suggested maybe moving the planning and zoning meeting further away from the city council agenda. So if there's 2 weeks in the interim, we would have time to prepare the necessary documents. You know, there's different things you could do, but it just seems like the process might need to be looked at. And this is one of the things I suggested to Rylan that you should ask Stantec for a proposal on. And it'll probably save you in legal fees anyway, because I do a lot of this and there'll be some cost savings there.
So
A lot. Thank you.
I guess I would ask that we push this out so the council has a little more time with it. Because this is kind of a new thing to me, seeing this. And I'm wondering, it seems like this should be something we have to put out for bids. It's a service, correct?
Yeah, it's professional services, so it doesn't need to be,
Okay,
same as engineering, legal, professional services don't need to be only for contracts for the purchase of equipment or construction that are over a certain dollar amount, and this doesn't qualify for that. This is just your professional services contract. So you could, and that's the other thing I told the mayor too, is you could put it out for proposal. There is a group, that group's run by Tim Penny, the former gubernatorial candidate. They do this service in southern Minnesota. I think CETA might even do it.
I was just gonna ask that.
Yeah,
think-
I was-
mean, CETA works in all my cities. I think they have people who do this. Stantec does it. There's a whole bunch of engineering firms that do it, you know. There's options. You could go for proposals too. I mean, I suggested Stantec because they're already your engineer, so, but yeah.
I think if you hit on some good points, I think planning and zoning would welcome this from the staff report. I mean, we still need a planning and zoning commission
Oh, yeah.
made up of residents and public hearings and things like that. So they still need to function and do their thing. I think they would welcome this type of information. Because you're right, they get a packet and Renee she puts the packet together based on the information that came with the application, and she does some research, and from what short time she's been here, she's been doing really good. But I think I think our growth going forward is we're going to get into these large development plans. And I think that's where Stantec planning services would work hand in hand with our engineering. That's also going to get the plans from the developer. So,
Well, and especially in a couple of the cities that have these services, they don't always use them. I mean, if it's a lot split, it's fairly straightforward. The city administrator just does it. They don't.
and this is the same, it's by hour basis.
I don't know what their contracts are, but I just know who's doing what.
So some months may not be anything, and next month could be several hours.
So I would like, I like Jim's idea. I would like to look at, put it out there. I mean, if CETA does it, if this other company that you recommended does it.
I don't recommend them. I just heard they do it.
Well, that you mentioned, how about I say not recommend, mentioned, and bring it back. So that we can see what else is out there, and, you know, I appreciate Joe taking the time to get it put together, and I think it's worthwhile, and I think it would help us, so.
yeah, we definitely need it. I think we do.
I think it's, yeah, as long as we understand how to use the services, you know, and the committee knows what's available, what questions to ask, then we'll be able to be effective in working with these planners. That would be one of my concerns.
Yeah.
I like the idea of rolling it into one. If we're having CETA, I really think it would be a good idea to see if they do offer these services, because and start with one service instead of two. You know what I'm saying? Like, instead of doing planning and services and CETA, wouldn't it make more sense to see what one could do for us?
Right.
Versus the other for 2022. And do we have to budget for this, is what I'm wondering. Is this something we want for 2022? And does this affect our, because I know we budgeted for the CETA, right? Am I right?
Yes, we put in for the CETA for the year for a 1 day every other week.
So
$13,000.
Right.
I appreciate the discussion. I think I don't support going out for other quotes, because I feel like we're going to put Joe in even a more asking of him, which is gonna build, his master services contract is gonna increase because he's having to explain to a new party, the questions around that to bring them up to speed with something versus Joe is our city engineer that has been here for 12, 13 years in our professional services. And it seems like they would go hand in hand within the Stantec organization.
I agree with you, Ryland. If we were bidding out at something that was a larger contract, it might make sense to do that. And if it wasn't contingent on the hours that we were actually going to use, it might make sense to go out and bid a bunch of options, but it seems pretty low risk to say that we have a certain number of hours available. If we use them, great. If we don't, that's fine too. And if we don't use them, and maybe we should have that conversation as well. But it doesn't put us in a position of great risk by pursuing this, and we'd benefit from the knowledge of both of the firm, and we benefit from efficiency gains and cost savings as a result.
But I think regardless, he's gonna have to talk to someone. Like nobody that comes on board, whether it's from his company or a different company, is gonna know all that he knows. So I think you're a professional. You work with people from different companies all the time. I don't think that, in my opinion, I don't see that being a challenge for you. I think it's gonna be time, no matter what. He has to bring someone else up to speed. No one else knows what you know for the city. So whether it's a different company or at your.
They have worked with us, their planning services with a future land use map and comprehensive plan. And so I think there's a benefit to have that inside information and not having to bring somebody up to speed, because I think it's putting a burden on him. And we're also paying for the new company to come up to speed where, and it all depends on the quotes that come back, I don't think it's a big expenditure. I think it's just more expeditions of time to get a response back to planning and zoning.
What level is a planner at? Like, how much experience does the planner title have? Is it a 3 to 5 years of experience, or is it less than that?
I think Phil's got about 40 years of experience and Laura's got about 5 years of experience on our proposal. And one other thing is, we've kind of got a database of information and IS information and CAD information and that. There's some efficiencies to be able to share that information. They obviously have access to the networks that we have. But yeah, I certainly could work with other folks too. It's just a little more efficient for me to work with people that I've worked with for many years.
So the group that Tim Penny has is Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation. It really looks like an economic development group and early childhood education thing. So their website doesn't look like they do planning. I had that idea because I knew we had that and somebody else had asked me about it.
Yeah.
CDOT is also a planning group, but they might do it. I don't
know either.
I don't know.
I agree. I think it would be good for us to have a little bit of time with it. And, diversity isn't bad either, but I say, let's have some time with it and let's look at it from a broader spectrum and give us a little time with it. Because this is new to me.
Okay. Well, it's been in our packet for 2 months now, but we can extend it out. It'd be good to have it in place before we set our budget. In fact, I did include some funding for this, for our planning services in our budget. I believe I did. I'd have to look for sure.
And I'm just saying, Ryland, the concept, I know it's been in our packet, but the concept, for Orinoco. No, we would welcome it. And P&Z, we would definitely welcome it.
I like the idea a lot. I think I'm still struggling with having two different, like a planning and CEDA next year. I don't know why I'm struggling with that. Am I the only one struggling with that?
Is CETA and what?
And planning.
Well, I think that CETA provides a little bit different service for us than what we're offering here. If that's what you're saying. I think there are two different approaches.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it sounded like CETA offers a lot of different services. So I would maybe just want to double check. That's not something that they couldn't do too. And I do agree, Bryland, like budgeting for it, whether we decide on it now or not, budgeting for it isn't a bad idea. And I think it would be a good allocation of money, but maybe we could specifically ask CETA. So we know that Stantec does this, but could we specifically ask, bring it back to next meeting, specifically ask CETA if they do this kind of work as well, so that then we have one company coming in to do a job.
So I make a motion, we table this to November and have city staff touch base with CETA about what they can offer. I would also ask, and with input from Mike and his experience of other cities, or you can just research this yourself. Ask other cities of the planning services if they're part of their city staff engineer, or are they separate? And if they are separate, how well is that working? And bring that information back in a report to put in our packet for November. Is there a second?
Second,
Okay. Any more comments? Seeing none, Ryland, aye.
Lori, I.
Dana, I.
Jim, I.
Lizzie, I.
Approved, thank you. Next item is from the September agenda was a discussion about our city newspaper options. And in the packet, we went out to, staff went out to the Post Bulletin as well as to the Zumbrota paper. And there's examples and pricing. And, so from a pricing standpoint, I guess just to clarify, we know that the requirement is to publish public notices and public hearings, legal notices in a paper. And which is what we're doing. And right now, just based on the quotes, it's about 3 times higher going with Post Bulletin. They're at, for legal notices, Zumbrota is at $8.30 per column inch. And in our packet, as Post Bulletin was $25 an inch. And that runs pretty much across the board from the examples that I've seen. So there was some comments about, I think Dana requested this and feel free to Dana to make some comments. I know you were looking about online and subscribers and things like that.
Right, and we didn't really get that information.
The news record sent it, Post Bulletin did not.
So I don't know, again, it's not a comparison, so this is not useful information because it's not a comparison. Because you don't have users. So I guess we
have been reaching out to Post Bulletin for the past 3 months, asking for information, and they're not sending it over. There is a report in there from the news record showing some of their subscribers, but that is all the information that we have been able to get in the last 3 months, if not 4.
And I would like to add that the Post Bulletin has been very difficult to work with on this.
Well, I guess, yeah, then that answers a lot of our questions. I do think we just consider it each year and we approach it like you would any business that's you're paying for. So I don't know how we I guess, like you're saying, if they're not willing to work with you, then that kind of answers the question. But it would be incredibly helpful to know how many people are reading and accessing it, our information.
But I think from a legal standpoint, we're not advertising in it.
what I mean.
We're posting what we legally need to post. And on that end, we're taking the least expensive option,
Sure.
right? Because we're
Yeah,
not
I get-
advertising. We're just
Yeah.
getting the message out there like we legally need to.
Sure. And because anytime we advertise for jobs or anything, we still do it in both, correct?
Sometimes,
It's dependent on what the council has voted for.
right,
Okay.
The annual
Yeah.
paper.
right.
Yeah.
No, like for
Annual
job
year.
postings, like Kane's
Oh,
job
yes,
was
yes.
in the Post Bulletin because we weren't getting bites from the news
Right,
record.
and so-
And that costed a fortune.
So within the, it says 725 up to 25 words and 15 cents for each additional word, so but that's for job postings, but for legal notices that we publish, that's our obligation, is just to publish it in the paper. And we meet that.
Sure. So I would just like to say then, you know, if we've had trouble with posting in the Zumbro, we can choose that. Each job posting we make, we can choose that at each time. Is that
Yeah.
correct? Or
Yeah.
do we have to go with the contract? Do we have to go with the Zumbro?
No.
Postings.
Job postings
Oh,
can
job-
go in any newspaper. That's the council's decision, Dana. Where's Dana? Yeah, I'm like, where am I supposed to be looking?
Yeah, that's, you know, we do the Indeed, wherever we
Yeah.
do the
Any,
postings.
that's up to you guys.
The legal
Okay,
notice.
that's perfect. I just want to know, like, are we getting, utilizing our money the best way possible for things like that, especially? Because if we found that we didn't get any hits on the Zumba, why would we do it again in the future? You know what I mean? We should really consider cutting that and then just going. Okay.
So we'll just, if it's a consensus, we'll just leave it where it's at, and we can, in January, when we have our annual designation of paper, we can, if it comes up for discussion, we can take care of it there too. Okay? New business. First thing is a garbage company issues with waste management. Dana submitted the request for this to add to the agenda.
I could add to this as well.
Okay. So, I don't know, we've all probably had some issues in the last few weeks with the changes and things like that. But so I'm just rifling through, sorry, it's loud. So what I kind of want to know is, you know, it just seems to me that there was promises made and contracts signed, and those things have not come to fruition. Mostly things like where's the actual?
Talking to people is one big thing. I can tell you right from the start.
Yeah, so they said that they're going to have a direct link to our local management, and from what I've heard from people contacting me, it's impossible. And so the only way I personally have gotten through, Ryland I know can get through, but like citizens, neighbors, other people randomly have come to meet me at City Hall and ask what is going on. They can't get through to anyone. So that's been a huge problem. And so I guess that we have a 3-year contract. And at what point do we say, you know, you're not holding up to your end of this contract?
Because I know we have faced overcharges. We have faced
Yes.
multiple charges in the same month for
Yes.
different amounts even. It's like, wow, we never had these issues in all the years. I mean,
That's
many
that's
years.
exactly what I've been hearing from people is that
Yes,
they're
and you
getting
can't
charged
call.
on a monthly basis what they should be being charged on a quarterly basis.
Right. So
And
and that's
then
with
they
us. We
can't
got a
hold it.
big payment.
Mhm.
And then we got a monthly one, and it just, and this is, it's very sporadic, and you
Yep.
can't contact anybody to get it ironed out.
Right.
I mean, and I've heard this, and this is just not our personal experience. Because like I say, we've never had issues with garbage, and we're seeing it. And our neighbors are saying the same thing.
Mhm.
You know, they're asking me, hey, doesn't the city negotiate this? And who do we contact? We can't get a hold of any representatives at the company. And
Right.
so it seems like it's pretty much a mess.
So you're right, there have been issues, and I've been in contact with Leanne Miller. Several months ago, we published a phone number to contact her locally. I thought we put that in the news or
We did, yeah.
website and Facebook and so it's a number that's, and I've also talked to Jay, the guy that was in here giving the presentation. And there have been startup issues, no question about that. I did talk to Leanne today, asking her how everything was going since she's the person, the local person in, out at the site by the airport is where they're at. And now that we've gone to a Wednesday pickup, she indicated there were no issues. Now, that's come to her attention. Talking about the monthly statement versus a quarterly statement, in my conversation with her is that, and this is, I think, what's caused the confusion, is that their system publishes a monthly statement. It's just awareness, but you're not getting billed that. You're still getting billed on the quarterly basis, but the system still puts out a statement for the month. And so it could appear that you're getting overcharged, but it's my impression it's just a matter of a notice going out saying, here's your monthly bill, but it's the quarterly bill that's
Yeah, but
that you're
not
paying
everybody's
on
getting
the
that.
payment
Like,
track.
Yeah, no.
I haven't
Yeah.
gotten anything like that. And then this person was getting her quarterly charge every month.
Right. That was us. Yep.
Yeah.
And it wasn't FYI, it's, you know, this is a bill.
Mm-hmm.
So
So I guess
I know the person that Dana brought my attention to, this was happening, but Leanne did talk to her personally and explain to her what I just explained. I thought that was taken care of, but if you're being overbilled, you should need to call Leanne at the number that we have. The number that's on the website, in the process of transferring from the current waste management or advanced disposal to waste management, that database is still, they're trying to work with 12 million people contacts of moving it over to the system. So that's causing problems with COVID and shortage of getting the database updated. So that's why they're encouraging all of our residents to call the 507 number. And we can put that back out on the website again versus the 800 number that's on the website. The reason the website number is not working because that database still has not been updated. Or they're in the process of updating it. And hopefully at the first of the year, it'll be updated is what Jay told me.
Can we put Jay's number on there? He
It's
has a
in-
cell phone number.
It's in the
our
contract for,
packet.
what's that?
He has a cell phone number in our packet. I mean,
Yeah, there's 612-430-4780.
maybe that would
Now, the
help.
other thing happened about the new rates. And this is maybe cause some of the confusion too, is that look at, it's in the packet. The previous rate was $63.05 for a medium 64-gallon trash and a 96-gallon recycling. That fee went up to $73.75 effective with the contract in February. As of May or June, they had not changed those rates, to the new rate. And so that's what an increase was also, people saw the increase, but it was really the contracts going into effect. And it took several months to get it all transferred over to the new rates. And so that could have caused some confusion with the increased rates or overbilling.
and didn't go into effect until when, Ryland?
The new rates that when we signed the contract in February.
Yep.
Those rates have not, they started this summer in the June or July timeframe. It depended on how fast they uploaded the system of the customers.
Sure.
So did they prorate it then and get charged from February to June? And that's where all those larger bills were coming in?
I got the impression it was $63 up till June and then started at $73, so
And then in February, it's gonna go up another 4%
that's pretty good.
based on the contract.
Again, if residents are having, and I personally went out and talked to Leanne, I met her, I talked to her a couple months ago, just to make sure, build that relationship with her, but yeah, she's the person you need to talk to, and I'd encourage you, we should put that number back out on the website again in a more prominent area, or Facebook. And I asked Leanne if she does continue to get issues from Orinoco residents to let me know. And
I don't think, personally, I don't think it's our job to be, I mean, it is because we chose them and, you know, for better or for worse. But as a company, they should really be, their number to be able to contact should be on your invoice. It should be on their website. Like, why are we having to do their marketing work?
Right. We're fielding their calls, really.
Right. And actually, that was another complaint that they one of the people said that they said that you have to take your questions to the city because you contract with the city.
Yes.
So,
And that's what we were told to. Well,
Right.
my wife was. I'm like,
Right.
whoa, no,
Right.
this is a
So-
contract.
So I'm just struggling, like I'm seriously wondering, like at what point do we just say, okay, well, this isn't working out, you're not fulfilling your contract. We had a different person bid. I mean, I don't know. Because it's 3 years and I don't feel like I don't feel like for 3 years we should deal with this. And it's because we signed the contract in February, it's October. That's a long time. And I get that there was
I mean, they should have been ready for it in my mind, but I know
Right.
COVID happened. I get it, but we were in the midst of it.
But that communication hasn't happened.
Right. That's right.
Hey, this is what we're experiencing. This is what's going on.
Yeah.
And again, when
I
are we
totally
discussing?
agree.
We're not the
Yeah.
you know, it's
Yeah.
just-
If things aren't right, just
Are
communicate.
they from 3-4 months ago? Are the
Well,
comments recent, or are they from 3-4 months ago when we were having all these issues?
Is this a recent issue?
Is this
Ours is
a
recent.
recent issue, or is this stuff from May, June, July, when there was a lot of problems?
Ours is recent. Ours is within the last 2 months.
And that was with Leanne? From the
I'm
local-
not sure the name. I'll ask my wife because she took notes on it.
Ask her if she called Leanne at that 507 number.
But again, I just want to keep, I feel like we need to revisit this with the man that, or whoever is in charge, because this isn't, I'm sure city staff is fielding a lot of calls too, because there's a post-it note about call Leanne on there, and that's just not appropriate. So something I think we should seriously consider, because I don't really think anybody should have to deal with this for 2 more years.
I agree.
Well, and I appreciate your comments, and it's kind of a perfect storm. And at the time in February, these folks had the best rates, and that's why we chose it. And
However, we were concerned that the communication wasn't there. And we were concerned that there wasn't going to be people to talk to, and
Yeah, that was
their
brought up.
customer service was not good, and that what we had expected, and they assured us that they would take care of us. And so I do think, you know, maybe it's something that we invite them
sure,
back
I'm sure you'd love to
for
come out.
a discussion and say, you know, our contract can be canceled. We can cancel the contract and find someone else to do this. Especially if they're not fulfilling their end of the bargain, or we can give them a notice and cancel the contract. I think we should invite them back to see what they're going to do to make it right. And if they can't hold that end of the bargain up, then
And the only thing I would ask is that we make sure we're talking about issues that are happening, still happening now, today, versus the baggage that happened back in May, June, and July. That's because they have put things in place
Well, and,
to make it, so I want to make sure we're really complaining about something that's
but
down.
on the other end of that is we've only been in this contract since February.
Yeah. it's been
And
good.
so maybe we had issues May, June, July, and then everything was good for another 3 or 4 months. And then, you know, we think it's all said and done. We don't complain, we don't bring them back. And then in March, we have more issues. I think it's just worth that communication and bringing them back and saying, listen, this is our expectation. Our citizens are upset. It's happening to all of us. And you said you would be there and you're not there. We hold this expectation for you.
Carolyn, Renee, are you still fielding phone calls or is that slowed down?
I haven't been getting as many. No, we were for a while in the summer, but not so much anymore.
Okay.
So maybe we just, you know, hold on it until the first of the year, maybe February, we bring it back up and say, how is everything going with waste management? Are we
That's a great idea.
on
I just don't wanna
track?
Confuse everything. So we'll table it till January then? We just want to case by case here.
I
And
think
I
we should.
would, oh, sorry, Lori, I was gonna say, and it would be nice too to, you know, just, it would be nice to have citizens' feedback about that. So however we ask for that.
Well, I think we're gonna get it regardless. If they're not performing, we're gonna get the feedback. I think, in my opinion, I would like to bring it back in February. As a, hey, we've had these people on board for a year and how are things going?
Fine.
Yep.
And if we need to talk about it before then, we will.
So do you want to make a motion to that, so we got record?
I move to bring the I don't know where it is, the garbage company issues back to the February 2022 meeting.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Second,
Any other discussion? All those in favor, Ryland, aye.
Lori, aye.
Dana, I.
Lizzie, I.
Jim, I.
Approved, okay, Presbyterian Church retaining wall, we had a comment from public forum with Lance, in September. I have not heard anything since then.
I haven't heard back. I don't think the city, have you received any information from or requests?
No.
We can just take that off the agenda. It was something that was brought to my attention by, well, somebody did come to the city hall and spoke, and then it was brought to my attention, but we can take it off the agenda until we hear back from the church, because I've heard nothing.
Okay, thanks, Dana.
Yep.
Next item is approving liquor license, Tilly's and Gas and Go. I make a motion that we approve Tilly's and Gas and Go's liquor license.
Second.
Comments? All those in favor, Ryland, aye.
Lori, aye.
Jim, I.
Dana, I.
Okay, now we'll finish our agenda with their closed session on personal reviews and have something to read here before. The agenda item for this meeting is the individual evaluation of the performance of city employee Renee Rowan. Renee Roy, how'd that end get in there? You like it? No. Deputy City Clerk pursuant to Minnesota statute section 13D.05 subdivision 3A. The closed portion of our monthly agenda will be closed because the city council will be evaluating, commenting on the performance of two separate individuals subject to the city's authority. This Renee Roy has received notice of this meeting Minnesota statute sections 13D.05 subdivision 3A provides that any portion of a meeting may be closed for this reason unless the individual who is subject of the meeting requests that it's open. In this case, the individuals did not make such a request that the meeting be open. Only the officials and consultants of the city who reasonably require access to the data may be in attendance at any portion of the closed meeting for the agenda item. I will now entertain a motion to close this portion of the meeting.
I move to close this portion of the meeting.
I second that. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Jim, I.
Aye.
Aye.
Dana, I.
The public is asked to leave the room.
Right.
So I gotta put these in. Okay, so now we just have.
So
So now it's all of us.